Hi again, Laura from Hyperstamper here, and today's journal flip through is an antique book from 1899 called Peck's Uncle Ike, and it's a wonderful, wonderful cover. And we've got the spine here. That this book was completely destroyed when I acquired it, so I just did a little bit of repair work here and covered it with a doily. And if you look inside, I've just got some vintage doilies around here and some vintage cotton fabric. And I've kept the original pages in there. Again, they were quite damaged, so I relaid them. And you can see there that that is copyright 1899. Is that wonderful? So the very first page here is a top pocket that I made out of a 1930s children's book. And again, this series of 10, this being the 8th in the series, has a vintage glassine stamp collector's envelope with some vintage stamps tucked into there. And I've got this lovely envelope, again from an Indigenous author from the late 1800s, and this was published in her later edition in 1937. So you can journal on that as well. And you know with my work that everything in here except the tea-dye pages that I did and hand stamped are all authentic, antique, and vintage ephemera. No digital copies, photocopies, commercial papers, or anything like that. So this is a 1926 ledger page, and it's really fun to look at all the items that they would have tracked and kept invoicing for. A little bit of tea-dye paper here for more journaling. And some vintage playing cards again. These are what you get in this series of 10. They're really sweet. I think that one's from the 50s and that one's from the 70s, is my educated guess. And a vintage atlas page. This one's of the Gulf of Mexico. And another one of those titles from an antique book, A Great Day. I think I have 5 or 6 of these because it was a chapter with 5 or 6 pages, so I used them to their fullest. And another one of those poetry pages from A Flint and Feather by the Indigenous poet Pauline Johnson. And look at this. I don't know whether it makes me really want a brownie or just never want to eat a brownie again, but here are the chocolate brownie coconut bars. Pecan party sticks from the 50s. Full color from a 50s recipe book. I just think it's hilarious, and I always challenge people who buy my journals to go ahead and try the recipes. Tutti Frutti chews. Say that 10 times fast. Oh my goodness, so much fun. Okay, over here I made a nice tuck, corner tuck. And this is a lovely page of a quilt called the Tulip Bowl, and the pattern would have been in the book. And you can it just screams 1950s, doesn't it? And here again is the flip side of that page. I love those old magazine pages. And this one here says The Wind and the Moon, title of an antique book page, and more 1926 journal ledger paper for you, blank, yay. So I'll just have another flip through here. This I made out of an antique page flipped over, so you have more to journal on. Here's one of Pearl Shop's receipts, store receipts from the 1950s from Cincinnati, Dry Goods and Notions. Now this one I kept in the plastic because it is a bit precious. This is from 1924 from Mrs. Margaret McCallum. And you can read all of this. It's Love, Danilda. Isn't that great? So I've kept that protected all these years, and I'm finally ready to gift it out to whoever owns this beautiful journal. 1930s Gateways to Bookline children's book, and a late 1800s book page here. And in here I made a pocket out of a doily, a table doily, and in it is this wonderful, this would have been a stereoscope card, right? Double images. You would have used like a Viewmaster type contraption to see it sort of in 3D. And then there is the writing on the back about what it is you're seeing. So this would have been a souvenir that somebody who was lucky enough to travel to Japan in the late 1800s would have picked up if they owned a stereoscope. And this is a beautiful image from a ballet out of Theater Arts magazine from 1955. And here, in between another one, is this full page spread from How to Make an English Garden from the mid-century. And again, another Japanese theme here, a garden with a Japanese style to it, with a crane. Oh, it's just beautiful. Again, another Theater Arts play, Fred Fahel. And how fun is this? This little piece of magazine was, or from a newspaper, was from the Times of Friday, March the 1st, and that is from 1902. And here is the 1930s Monopoly piece, B&O Railroad. Remember when I was a kid, if you had that, it meant you had BO. just thought I'd share that with you. This is from an Irish poetry book. And this is also in all of the series of 10 journals that I put out this month. And this is called Queenstown. And it's a beautiful poem with lots of white space to journal on. Just another fun image from that children's book from 1930. And a vintage Canada stamp. And this came off of one of the doilies that I acquired. It was the tag that was on there. You'll see the doily in another journal, actually, that I just put out today. And just some little bits and bobs of antique and newer lace. A book from the Magic Garden, a classic book. And I loved this edition because it has all of these green images on every page. It just makes it so lovely to look through. And that's a cardstock page from the Christmas Carol. And Pearl's shop receipt here. Again, mounted on top of 1930s music sheet, and just a little piece of leftover 1926 ledger page that you can journal on there as well. There's some more white pages. And in here, the centerfold is from a vintage Birds of North America book. Aren't they lovely? I'm in love with those. And it's aged, but it's still glossy, so I think that's really quite special. Just a little bit of frill there I put in. And another one of those cardstock pages with a lovely image of a house up on the hill. And this is just a little piece here that you can journal on. More tea-dye papers. And I just added some trim here on the flip side of this page so that we have an antique book page tag here. And I made all of the embellishments also out of antique scraps, as well as this flower, which is actually from a Danish book and from the early 1900s. And this here is a lovely print from a 1956 art book on Henri Rousseau from Paris. Isn't that lovely? That's one of the nicer images, I think. And back here I have a little cookbook advertisement from Blue Ribbon Coffee. Isn't that awesome? And here is a funky little vintage postcard. And I'm going to say this is from the 1940s. And on this pocket here is the center of a double page spread, and you can see where they punched in the threading, the very thick threading for that book binding. Another Pearl shop, and this is one of few Curves and Knives, a full page plate in full color. And this one is called Summer Scenes in New York Harbor, and this is from 1902. Now, the reason I covered up the flip sides is because they're upside down and they were throwing it off a bit. Some more ledger pages here, flipped onto a 1945 dictionary page. And here's one of my favorite pages, 1940s university yearbook page. Look at the hair on these. Oh my gosh, are these fantastic? Just so great. I think there's more here. Yep, the Debating Society. How about that? Just awesome, awesome, awesome. And that brings us to the end of our journal. So I hope that you'll visit my Etsy store etsy.com/shop/hyperstamper with a capital H. Thanks for visiting and please subscribe.